Delvis, there's a big concert on Saturday, and it happens to be Valentine's Day, no pun intended. and you know, I'm feeling in the giving mood. How about you?
Yes, it is always better to give than receive.
Yes, it is. And that concert is Jagged Edge, Tyrese, Tank, Silk. It's at the Wolstein Center on the Cleveland State campus here in Cleveland. It, great date night for somebody.
Yeah, why don't you you mean that you might could hook someone up?
Be the hookup man.
Yeah, you might have to take your turn to be the hookup. Yeah, be the hookup man. You know some folks and know some folks.
Okay, let's have a contest. Let's see. Let's get some rules here. So to win 2 tickets for this concert, you have to subscribe. And Delvis, why don't you give us a trivia question?
The trivia question is one of the featured artists in this concert is Tank. We would like to know if you could tell us what was Tank's first number one hit on the Billboard Adult R&B chart. The first one. He's had a few, but what was the first one? The name of that song.
And put your answer in the comment, and the way we'll do it, and we'll do it live. Each person that or each comment that's made in the comment section on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, we'll give it a number, and we'll go one through whatever. Put it in a hat, a Raiders hat, and we'll pick out and we'll pick out who the winner is live, and we'll do that. How about Friday? Are you available Friday, Delvis, around noon?
Yeah, noon I'll be available.
Okay, so we'll do it at noon, and we'll give you 2 hours to reach out to us, and we'll send out our email address so you can reach out to us, and it'll be a great date,
Yeah.
and a great date, a great concert, and it'll be on the Sports Brothers.
Now, one thing is that even if you're not a subscriber presently, you can subscribe and then be eligible for the concert. So this is for our subscribers that we have now, plus any new subscribers that we'll get. So if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe, answer the question, and you'll be eligible for the drawing.
Okay, and good luck to everyone out there. The live drawing is Friday, but you can start putting your answers in right now.
Well, we had a lopsided Super Bowl. The score wasn't indicative on how much the Seattle Seahawks dominated. Although the Patriots defense, they hung in there for a while. Sam Darnold barely threw for 200 yards, but it was just too much Seattle defense. Hats off to the Seattle Seahawks beating the New England Patriots, winner of the Super Bowl, to be the winner of the Super Bowl. But Branson, one thing that I had to laugh at is that people acted like Will Campbell, who's the Patriots left tackle, who's a rookie, who part of the knock on him coming into the draft was he was 6'6", but he had short arms. His arms are shorter than mine. So when you're a tackle, you have short arms. It's hard to pass block consistently. People forgot that when the Browns played the Patriots this year, Myles Garrett ate him for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, the next day breakfast, morning. the morning breakfast, snacking, whatever. This guy has been having problems all year. And what did they think was going to happen in the biggest game of the year? So, hats off the defensive coordinator, who's a brother, but Mike McDonald, who's the head coach, actually calls the plays. He never took his foot off the gas. And for all you people that think that Jim Schwartz is the end all be all of defensive coordinators, what you saw in the Super Bowl, bro, was a master class of defensive coordination.
And we figured that. We figured Seattle was going to dominate, which they've been doing all year with their defense. And shout out to Kobe Bryant from Cleveland's Glenville, got a Super Bowl. And I was trying to think how many former Glenville players have Super Bowl rings.
It's a few.
Yeah,
And also AJ Barner, who graduated from Aurora, which is close.
yeah, and he went to Michigan, but he's from here, so he's from here first. So we won't talk about it with Michigan. But Delvis, I like a good story. You know I love a good story, and the fact that Kenneth Walker the third won the MVP, and this is a guy in high school. They didn't know if he was going to even play football again. The summer after his junior year, he had three blood clots on his lungs, and not only didn't know he was going to survive, but they didn't know if he was going to play football again. But being the good family that he's from, and his mother doing her due diligence, went to see different experts and got him the proper medicines. And not only did he get back to health, but he played his senior year of football in high school. And a few years later, he's wearing the ring. He's got a Super Bowl ring. So, like I said, I love a good story, and it was great to see him not only win Super Bowl but also get that Super Bowl ring.
And put a little sugar on top of that, he's a free agent. He's a free agent. And one thing I looked, and at some point, they have to stop. They got to stop with this disrespect of running backs. You just saw a running back control that game. Sam Darnold was horrible the first half. Kenneth Walker is the one that kept them in the game with running the ball. Bruh, do you know out of all the position groups, far as when you have like the franchise tag, what the
Right,
amount is,
right.
running back is the dead last. Less than a guard, less than a linebacker, less than a safety. Running back is the last. I think that it's 14 million, which is, think about this, it's 14 million for a running back and 28 million for a wide receiver. Who wide receivers, aren't involved in every play. A running back may have to run the ball, may have to catch the ball, may have to pick up the blitz. A lot of things a running back has to do every play that the wide receivers and no other group pretty much does, except for the center and the quarterback, who touches the ball pretty much on every play. So this disrespect of running backs, and you have some good running backs, but all of, if the franchise tag is only 14 million compared to I think quarterbacks is probably 40 million, but I know the wide receivers is 28 million. Bro, when will the disrespect of the running back position stop?
Well, hopefully, this MVP in the Super Bowl, and Delvis, you know how sports are, and in football, it was the run and shoot was the big thing before, and even going further in the past, it was about the running game. Now it's about passing. But I think teams, especially when you have a good defense, I think teams now are going to start going back to featuring a running back because they can control the game. And I tell you what, I mean, were you a little surprised he got the MVP, that they didn't consider somebody on Seattle's defense on getting it? I mean, I was pleasantly surprised Walker got it, but I was definitely surprised. I thought they were going to go with defense when it came to the MVP.
No, I think they had no other way to go, and the reason why is because he was so dominant in his performance. I mean, the game was at a standstill. Neither quarterback played well. Neither quarterback played well. But with Seattle, even when they were going down there getting field goals, the reason why they were moving the ball early in the game was because of Kenneth Walker, the third. Shout out to Kenneth Walker Jr. too. But because he was running the ball so effectively, the ball was at least moving. With Seattle, with New England, they didn't have any success running the ball. See, you can't do neither. You either can run the ball or pass the ball effectively. You shouldn't just have to depend on your defense. Now, this isn't Trent Dilfer in the Super Bowl where the defense just, went crazy. But I think, justifiable. It was justifiable that he won the MVP. He was the best player on the field, both teams, both sides of the ball.
And again, congratulations to Kenneth Walker III on getting that MVP. And hopefully he gets paid, for doing his job, doing a great job. Well, speaking of great job, but I don't know if people gave him much of a great job. And when it comes to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, well, I take that back. It was a good job because our guy Roger Craig finally got into the Hall of Fame. It was well deserved. He should have been in there a long time ago for things that he's done on the field. So shout out to him. Shout out to Luke Kuechly from Cincinnati getting into the Hall. Did you have any issue with the 6 people that got into the Hall of Fame?
No. Well, what's going to be funny for Patriot fans and even some NFL fans is the fact that Adam Vinatieri, the kicker for the Patriots, got in, but the coach and the owner didn't.
I think they're heated.
Oh, they're very heated. And this is my thought. My thought process is, okay, and I guess the writers just determine a lot of this Hall of Fame stuff. And I've been said you have too many bum writers, that are rising. Some people rise and some people fall. They've been keeping Art Modell out the Hall of Fame for years. But Art Modell introduced television to the NFL. And now every owner is a billionaire and every player is a millionaire because of Art Modell.
Monday Night Football.
Art Modell. Now, he did the Browns terribly wrong. No more than Jimmy Haslam. No, in fact, Jimmy Haslam is worse because
Jimmy Haslam's worse. He's worse.
Yeah, because the reason why I say what Haslam did is worse is because there was already precedent that this city lost his team. And then you want to go ahead and move it in Brook Park. That's the most idiotic thing. Yeah, we're going to move it away from the people. Yeah, that'll get them. Yeah, we're smarter than everybody. We hire smart coaches. We hire smart general managers. We're smart. So we're going to go to Brook Park right by the airport and pay these people to lie to say that there won't be any traffic holdups. Of course it's going to be that. But sticking with the writers and who they elect in, what's going to happen when Tom Brady's eligible? Because you had scandals with Belichick. You had Spygate. You had Deflategate. So you had at least 2 things that the NFL found were improper. You had Kraft doing I ain't gonna say what I usually say because my mama is right behind me, but you know what I usually say.
It will give us the G version.
I can't because sucky, sucky. That's what Kraft got caught in, the sucky. That's what he got caught in. Got arrested. Now, of course, they went ahead and whitewashed it, but he was still in the sucky bar. He wasn't in there just to get a massage. He was in the tub getting a rub. So, but they want everybody to be these perfect citizens. And what Kraft did, I guess because he was the team owner and he oversaw everything, but when it involves the integrity of the game, Spygate, Deflategate, that's too many. I don't know of other than Greg Williams and the Saints when they did the bounty thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the only thing comparable that I could think of where on the field something really affected the game. So I'm just waiting to see what are they going to do with Tom Brady, because he's going to be eligible. What is it, 2 years or 3 years? It's coming down the road. Are they going to hold him to the same standard? Now, Belichick was great, but going to a different sport, Barry Bonds never got caught with anything. People make these suppositions about, well, he used steroids. No concrete. He never failed a drug test. Well, he got bigger. Jim Thome got bigger. Nobody ever says anything. A lot of players get bigger. I'm waiting to see the person who gets older and gets smaller. I'm waiting to see that.
And the thing about Bonds, as I've always said, you take away the alleged years that he supposedly took steroids, his numbers are still Hall of Fame numbers. But when he was with the Pirates, so as in this case, it's about a punishment for what someone perceived as going against the rules, which is different from Pete Rose, because it was an opinion. It's there on the wall when you walk into the clubhouse about not gambling. So that's totally different. But you and I had talked off camera before, where you think that there needs to be, I mean, what's your opinion? No writers to vote for the Hall of Fame, or just a few writers?
I think it shouldn't be any writers, because you're going to have a bias. I think what they need to do is get some arbitrary people, but get people who actually played the game. Give the Hall of Famers a big impact, because they've already been adjudicated to be the best of the best. And there aren't too many Hall of Famers that you go like, nah. You might say, well, this person should have got in before this person. But for the most part, most of the Hall of Famers should be there. Without them, the story can't be told. There's no way Terrell Owens should have had to wait as long. There should have been Roger Craig. Everybody wants him back like Roger Craig. 1,000 yards rushing, 1,000 yards receiving. Plus, people forget, he also blocked. He was a fullback once upon a time. So I think that they have too many writers and they have biases. I mean, we got two goofy people in Cleveland, Mary Kay Cabot and Tony Grossi. I wouldn't want them to judge a dog show. I wouldn't want them to dog a fly contest, because they have prejudices and biases that would not enable them to make a fair and arbitrary decision. We've seen that in their articles throughout the years, bro.
See, I think, for me, I think it should be a mix of writers and Hall of Famers, because if you just leave it to the Hall of Famers, they have their biases too.
Oh yeah.
They call this era, soft era, so right. They would have prejudice there. And one of my examples is, the All-Star game, the NBA All-Star game, where they allowed the players to vote. Somebody that averaged 1.5 points per game got 2 votes to be a starter.
Oh, Bryant?
Yeah. 2 votes to be a starter.
A starter. It should be a mix. But
it should be a mix.
It can't be a right. It should be somebody who has no dog in the fight. Like I like the Cleveland Browns, but I'm not going to go Cleveland Browns crazy, because I also like the Detroit Lions, and I'm not going to go Detroit Lion crazy. It has to be somebody that is not a fan, but you have too many fanboys and fangirls that are making these dumb decisions. But I do agree that Belichick and Kraft, as far as the integrity of the game, they have made decisions and done things that make you question. And I also think that whoever introduced gambling, because gambling has hurt the game. I think far as every time you see a bad call or you see a bad play, it make you question, okay, is it fixed in? You know,
Right, right. And that's a shame that we even have to think about that,
yeah.
in this era.
And speaking of All-Star game, the All-Star game is coming up next week. But my brother, we're seeing some cats that are, I mean, yesterday, well, not yesterday,
Monday.
Tuesday, Monday rather,
Yes.
we saw a brawl with the Pistons, and the Hornets, which is like Detroit are the new bullies of the block. The Hornets like, we ain't no punk. And it came to something seismic. The great thing I thought about it is after all of that happened, bro, Detroit jumped out on the Hornets. The Hornets proved that really they're no punks. They came back. And wouldn't you love to see a 1-8 playoff series between the Pistons and the Hornets? I would. I raised my hand for that. I would
Yes.
love to see that.
Well, we're going back to. I guess this is a preview for the young people out there. What happened in the '80s, which was more common, '70s and '80s, as far as the physicality. Now, the NBA has talked about getting back, not to that extent where there's going to be physical disagreements, but they wanted to get back to some type of physical play in the NBA, and I think they are accomplishing that. But they do have to get this under control because you don't want 6'8", 6'9", 260, 70-pound men swinging at each other with no equipment. You don't want any damages like that to happen. But shout out to our guy, Beef Stew, Isaiah Stewart. He's going to be sitting for a while when these suspensions come down. But hopefully it won't hurt for the Pistons' sake. It won't hurt them too much that he's out.
But did you hear what he said?
What did he say?
Well, they drafted him to Detroit. He's not gonna sit back and see somebody, what's his name? Miles Bridges.
Right.
He was rah-rah when it came to Duran, but when Stu came up, he was moonwalking like Michael. I thought I was gonna hear hee. That's what I thought I was gonna hear. But I understand that you protect your brother, but are you putting your team in harm? Because he's a key part of that team. A lot of people look at him as just a bully. No, this dude plays. He gives them toughness. He gives them points when they need points sometimes, as far as scoring around the basket. He plays defense. He'll rotate to the weak side. He does a lot of things that aren't in the stats, and he's vital to that team. I think he's one of the most important. I mean, Cade Cunningham is the most important person, yes. But without B. Stu setting the tone, they're a totally different team, bro.
And that's going to be the difference when it comes to the playoffs. Well, let's talk about the Cavs real quick. They made their trade. We saw the beard, James Harden, in a couple games. And what's your thoughts so far from what you've seen? And will this trade move them into the NBA Finals?
I don't know yet. The reason why I have to say TBD, to be determined, is that what happens when Mobley gets back? Because right now, bruh, Jared Allen is playing like an all-star because he has somebody feeding him the rock, and all he's doing is picking and rolling. Or when they double team Harden, or he finds him. Big men, and we said this previously, big men love playing with James Harden because they're going to get a chance to eat. Donovan Mitchell loves playing with James Harden because he doesn't have to have that stress, because he would have to play make, he'd have to find his own shot and do all of that stuff. So now a lot of that burden is off of him. When you think about the game that happened on Monday, bro, for all this James Harden doesn't play defense, Jokic turned over the ball when Harden came over to double. Now, there's a big difference when you have a 6'1", 170-pound Darius Garland and a 6'4", 6'5", 200-something-pound James Harden coming to you on the double. It's a bigger body. I like what they've done, but will Allen still have that room to roam in the middle, and will Mobley still be able to integrate himself into this nice little role that they're having? Because, I mean, bro, let me tell you the stupidest thing the Nuggets did that game. It was stupid. It proves that this Edelman dude, he ain't his daddy, Rick Edelman. Bro, the Cavs are pretty much starting with 4 guards and Jared Allen. If you call Tyson, a big guard.
Right.
What do the doggone Nuggets do? Start the same lineup. They started 4 wing players or guards and Jokic. And eventually,
It didn't work.
They gonna lose.
It didn't work. Real quick, the only offensively, I have no concern with the Cavs. And I think when Mobley comes back, that's just going to make them even better. My issue is defense. As you've seen, they've scored a whole lot of points, but it's going to be the defensive end that's going to determine if they go to the Eastern Conference Finals and eventually the finals. But Devils, real quick, let's get to our guest, Howard Bryant. Howard Bryant is the author of Kings and Pawns, and we're going to spend some time with him with here in the Sports Brothers with this interview. An award-winning sports journalist, author, and media personality known for his writing on the intersection of sports, race, and American society. An author of 11 books, including his latest, Kings and Pawns, Jackie Robinson and Paul Robeson in America. Ladies and gentlemen, Howard Bryant. Howard, good, man.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for joining us. I just want to get right at it. I mean, you've written about Hank Aaron, Branch Rickey, and many sports legends. What made you want to tell this story about Robinson and Robeson, 2 men that never met each other?
Yeah, well, one, thank you for having me on. It's always good to be able to talk about these things in all these different places, so you can have different conversations. And this is one of the few ones where we're actually talking about sports. And so many have been about politics of the book and the other things. So this is interesting. The reason I wanted to do it, one was personal. I mean, I think one was just the embarrassment of being in this business for as long as I've been in it and knowing parts of this story. And I think that when you do what we do for a living, you're supposed to be curious. You're supposed to know, you're supposed to go beyond, right? That's what we're all looking to do, is to find something that needs more explication. And I've been saying this, that embarrassment was really a motivating factor here because of the number of times. I mean, I believe that I've probably read, I wouldn't say everything that's ever been written about Jackie Robinson, but pretty damn close, right? And I think a lot of us have.
Mm-hmm.
And how many times have we read that paragraph or two, or that one page that Robinson testified against Paul Robeson in front of HUAC in 1949, and then just kept it moving? I mean, that was really, and I think that at one point when I was working on a book in 2018 called The Heritage, Black Athletes That Divided America and the Politics of Patriotism, I used the Paul Robeson's 1956 testimony in front of HUAC, and that's when it really hit me. I'm like, wait a minute, you're talking about 2 of the most accomplished, most important Black figures in the first half of the 20th century. They are in Congress, pitted against one another. And that doesn't qualify as news. I think that kind of qualifies as news. And I mean, that would be the equivalent of like Michael Jordan testifying against Denzel Washington today, right? I think that should get someone's attention. And I was a little embarrassed about how many times I had read about this. It never went further. And so that was the first thing. And I think the second piece of it was just the way that I like to work, and the way that you can sort of see where our history is going. The things that we just take at face value need to be reassessed and need to be challenged. And going back and looking at this period, you realize that this little piece of a story had a lot of implications on the civil rights movement. That we treat the civil rights movement as really beginning with Claudette Colvin, with Rosa Parks, with Emmett Till's death, and really this post-World War II period, because of the Cold War and because of what was done to Paul Robeson, really pushed the entire movement back like a decade. And so I said, this is going to be my next subject.
So Howard, set us up as far as you have in the book, which I was, I won't say surprised, but maybe disappointed that Branch Rickey convinced Jackie to testify. I mean, did Jackie eventually feel being used, and what was?
Well,
what
let's
was
talk
the
about
reading
this for
of
a
it?
second. I mean, let's dig into where we are at the time, okay? From the lens of Branch Rickey. I mean, we've been talking a lot about the lens of Jackie, but let's talk about the lens of Branch Rickey. Branch Rickey is in Brooklyn. It is 1943. That's his first full year. He leaves the Cardinals in 42. He joins the Dodgers. And one of the first things that he is faced with, and we're in the middle of World War II, but one of the things that he is realizing, that he's learning about Brooklyn, is that Brooklyn is an incredibly progressive place. Brooklyn has a very strong labor movement. It has a very active Jewish community that is very much connected to labor. It has a Black community that has a thriving political electorate, and it has a communist press, the Daily Worker in New York, that is also very active. And those three things combined, and a Black press as well, that's omnipresent, and even though not always rooted in Brooklyn. And everyone's pushing for integration, and they're pushing for integration in Brooklyn in a way that they're not pushing for integration in St. Louis, where he came from. And they're pushing for integration in a way that they're not pushing for it even in other parts of New York. You've got the Yankees in the Bronx, you've got the Giants in Harlem. They're not getting the same pressure that the Dodgers are getting. And so the left-wing progressive wing of the political spectrum is really on Branch Rickey in an unprecedented sort of unique way. And so, but Branch Rickey's politics are very much conservative. He's a Republican who is he's not just an anti-communist. He's also an anti-New Dealer. He's anti-Roosevelt, and he has his own sense of fairness. He has his own sense of what he thinks America should be.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, there's also pressure in New York because of the coming Ives-Quinn Act, about which prohibits discrimination in the workplace. So there's all of these political pressures on top of Branch Rickey. And Branch Rickey has been able to escape for the last 80 years of giving his view of the integration story as the only view. And the version that he had always given was that it was his moral compass that really forced him to integrate, and also the fact that there was an opportunity to find better players. But he was also under a ton of pressure. And so one of the voices of that pressure was Paul Robeson. And as you start to move into 1947, when Rickey finally does integrate with Robinson, you get to 1949, where Robinson is a bona fide star, and tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union are really ramping up. One of the things that Rickey wants to avoid is he wants to avoid this counter narrative that it was the Communist Party, and that it was the left-wing progressives, and it was the grassroots political pressure that forced him to integrate. And so what he wants to do is he wants to protect his monument. He wants to protect the monument of integration against. He doesn't want to share the stage that there were all these different forces that created this moment. And so when Paul Robeson is being attacked for giving his speech in Paris, where he essentially was the precursor to Muhammad Ali, where he says, "Listen, I got nothing against the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union never did anything to black people. Why would we fight?" The way that Ali said the same thing, no Viet Cong ever called me, the N word, right?
Right.
Um, and so he needs somebody whose voice is as strong is as influential as Robeson's, and he needs that voice to be black. And there's nobody else in the country at that time who can fit those criteria other than Jackie Robinson. And so Ricky is really driven by a lot of self-motivation here. And also 6 years earlier, before there was a Jackie Robinson in the national stage in baseball, Ricky actually meets Paul Robeson in front of the baseball owners. Robeson addresses the owners on December 3rd, 1943, during the winter meetings, and the discussion is all about integration. And so these two characters, what was really interesting to me in terms of the construction of the book, is there is a Ricky Robeson relationship long before there was ever a Robinson Robeson relationship. Really, Branch Rickey is the puppet master behind the whole thing. No Branch Rickey, no book.
Wow.
And no Branch Rickey, no testimony, because Robinson didn't even want to do it. So that's really where the title comes from. You've got all these different layers where people are in service of, and are they manipulated? Are they being manipulated? Are they doing things free will? In Robeson's case, you could make the argument that he was one of the original of the pawns, because in 43, when he testifies, when he addresses the baseball owners, he's doing so at the behest of the greatest racist in the game's history, which is Kennesaw Mountain Landis. And he's doing so because the black press is pressuring baseball to integrate over through the Double V campaign. And so the black press is saying, hey, we're fighting, we're dying overseas during World War II. We want our rights when we come home. And anybody who has relatives from back then knows that if you were a black man wearing a uniform in the 1940s, you were a target. And so just as Robinson says in his testimony, hey, we've got all kinds of problems even without the communists, Robeson says the same thing to the baseball owners in 1943. I am not here in opposition to the black press. So you've got these two guys who at different stages are both being sort of placed in opposition to each other, in opposition to their own people. And they have to sort of navigate and establish themselves so they're not being seen as pawns.
Howard, it seems like that Branch Rickey has been over romanticized as far as you reading about different stuff, like he was this great emancipator, but just as you've stated and what we found out later, that wasn't quite the case. Yet here in Cleveland, Bill Veeck signed Larry Doby shortly after that. Yet Bill Veeck didn't get any of the adulation. He didn't get any of the love that Ricky had received. Other than being the Ricky being first, can you understand for any reason why Veeck didn't get that love?
Sure. I think there are a couple of reasons. I think the first reason, and you could make the argument that this first reason doesn't really apply because Cleveland won the very first year. I mean, and they were a pretty good team in 47. They go to the World Series in 48. They win it in 48. So it's not as though they weren't successful. The difference, I would say three things. One, Bill Veeck was never taken as seriously as Branch Rickey. Okay. Branch Rickey was a far better, I wouldn't say promoter, because nobody could promote the game like Bill Veeck. Right. But I think that the very first thing, I mean, let's draw back a little bit. The first thing is that Rickey was in New York. and nobody loves to create. I mean, it's a city of superheroes, right? Nobody loves to create themselves more like New York. Nobody likes to generate themselves as the leader. It's the Big Apple, right? If this is happening in Cleveland, or if this is happening in Boston, if it's happening in DC, it's a totally different story. But because you were in New York, where the myth makers live, you're in New York that's got 10, 11 newspapers, and 10 of them are traveling. The Ricky mythology, and all the writers are in New York. All the Dick Youngs and the Roger Kahns and all of the names that we all sort of know in sports writing, they're all in New York. It's all situated in New York. And so that's sort of the first thing. I think the second thing is the fact that Jackie was a far more compelling figure than Larry Doby, in that he was a national hero before he even joined baseball. He was one of the best, if not the best, college football player when he was at UCLA. He had already made national news, by fighting his court martial in 1944. It's sort of fascinating that if he had chosen to remain instead of accepting his honorable discharge, that he would have fought in the Battle of the Bulge where Warren Spahn was, that they both would have been, in segregated units, but fighting the same war. And so I think that's a big piece of it. And I also think that when it comes to, I think when it comes to Cleveland as well, because let's not forget that the very next year they get Satchel Paige, who's the biggest black player in the sport's history. But I think the difference was one, the media center, and I think the other is that Branch Rickey was far more willing to take on the what's the best way to say it? I think he was willing to take on the social significance of it. I think Bill Veeck did it. Bill Veeck brought the black players in. He brought in the guys, and he treated them as baseball players. But he did not move this as a sort of national story the way that Rickey did. Rickey, and also the other piece too, I think the other thing that's very, very important to remember here is that when Rickey brought in Robinson in 1945, Cleveland wasn't a target of integration the way New York was, the way Brooklyn was. And so after the announcement was made in October 23rd, 1945. After that announcement is made, the owners have essentially ganged up on Rickey, and they consider Rickey to be the traitor. They are focusing on Rickey. So Rickey's getting all the attention, whereas Veeck simply did the thing.
Howard, a lot of people may not realize, because they've seen pictures of Jackie Robinson the later years of his life, he didn't live to see 60. He died.
He didn't live to see 55.
Yeah, he died as a young man with the struggles of going through. He was a Republican, died in a war Republican, but it seemed like once he was able to see what was going on, and then with the Goldwater thing, it was like, I think I've been played. And then he became, more liberal in their eyes. But he, to me, was never a sellout like some of these other guys. My question to you is, do you think all the struggles, whether it was on the field, whether it was the court martial, whether it's realizing he was played by the Republican Party, all of these things kind of weighed on him, where he ended up dying, I think, 52, 53 years old?
53. Yeah, well, 100%. And one of the reasons that I wanted to do this book was this very thing that you're talking about, is that we talk about this story. Branson was asking earlier, what was the motivation for doing the book? I mean, this was another one of the motivations, was the number of books on Robinson that I've read. 90% of them are written by white writers, and damn near 100 of them are focus on how Jackie made white America feel, how Jackie made black America feel in terms of pride. But very few focus on what this was doing to him. What was he carrying throughout? Never mind what he had already brought with him with the court martial and everything else. But what was the effect on him? And I didn't want to be unromantic about it. I didn't want to be a downer. I just wanted to focus on him and say, these are the things that came along the way. And he wasn't, let's put it this way. He was not a dyed-in-the-wool Republican. He was a dyed-in-the-wool conservative. And he viewed himself as independent, but he ended up finding himself aligned with more conservative values. And so that led him to lean more toward conservative politicians. And you're 100% right. This starts happening, this, not to speak in pronouns, but this being this sort of disillusionment is starting in the 50s when he's still playing, when he's realizing, in fact, you can make an argument, and I do make the argument in the book, that it begins even in 49 before his testimony. He testifies not because he has anything against Robeson. He doesn't even know Robeson. They've never met, and they never would meet. He has an obligation to Branch Rickey. He feels an obligation to Branch Rickey, but he also feels an obligation to Black people. He feels an obligation that if I don't do this, the few white people who support integration are going to abandon us. If they think that we are somehow aligned with the country's greatest enemy, the Soviet Union, then we're going to lose that support too, and we can't afford that. And in 2026, when you read his rationale, I felt that white people would view us differently. It sounds like a sellout, but that's not what it was at that time. At that time, you're dealing with a very small number of people who are committed to integration. You also have a very large number of people who are committed to segregation. So he's upset in his own sport. By 49, opening day, there are only 7 Black players in the game, and 5 of them play for Cleveland. I'm sorry, 2 of them play for Cleveland, Satchel Paige and Doby, and the other 5 play for the Dodgers. And so because of that, he's realizing, wait a minute, I've been here for 4 years now. I get signed in 1945. It's now 1949, and the rest of the league still hasn't followed. And the reason why they haven't followed is because they don't want me. They don't want us. I'm here, and I did this because I believed that once there was me, there would be others. And now there aren't very many others. And so think about what that means to him on a day-to-day basis, that the whole thing doesn't feel like it's this great experiment. And that's why in his later years, he would always refer to it as Ricky's experiment, not mine, right? I was just what did he say? I was just a guinea pig along the way. I was just, and that tells you, I mean, when you really dig into his commentary, it really tells you how much he's carrying. And by the time he gets out of the game, at the end of the 56 season, and he gets traded and then chooses to retire, not only have the Tigers, the Phillies, and the Red Sox not integrated, but Jackie's got a direct line to the White House because he's Jackie Robinson. And what is he finding out? He's finding out that his Republican allies, Dwight Eisenhower and Nixon and the rest of them, they're not really about it. Right. He's sending telegrams from Little Rock. He's sending telegrams from Birmingham. He's sending telegrams from all of these places in the South about what is happening. And he's getting nothing in response. And so by 63, when you bring up Goldwater before the 64 campaign, he writes a piece in the Saturday Evening Post that says the GOP for white men only, ? He's realizing what's happening. And it's the relationship that he also has with Martin Luther King Jr., who's trying to subtly tell him, you're wrong on this. You're wrong on this, and you're wrong in your support of Vietnam. And so these things are starting to move Jackie back, closer to the center and toward the left, where he's realizing that, yeah, maybe I signed on with the wrong team. And that brings me to one other thing. I'm sorry to go on this. I know you guys have questions.
Take your time.
But but the other piece of this too is the recognition by the time you get to 1965 that when Branch Rickey dies, that virtually all of Jackie's non-racial politics were informed by Rickey. No, Rickey, he's not an anti-communist anymore. He barely mentions communism ever again. He, in fact, doesn't mention communism ever again. He doesn't mention Robeson ever again, except in response to him being attacked for that testimony from 1949. So almost all of his anti-communism has been shaped by Branch Rickey. It's also been shaped by this idea, as Rachel would say, who, by the way, is still alive and 103 years old and will be 104 in July, that Jackie was also one of those my country, right or wrong people. And one of the things that it reminds me of is when we talk about where we are today in this idea of, you hear a lot of Black people saying, hey, we didn't elect Donald Trump, you did. Not once, but twice. This isn't our fight. We're going to sit this one out. You guys talk to each other, figure it out. That's the same thing that you were going through in 1949, where Robinson was implored by a lot of people. Why are you testifying in service of these segregationists? Why are you testifying in service of people who won't even shake your hand? They are not your allies. They are not in line. All they want you to do is destroy another Black man. Why are you doing this? And Jackie's response to that was, because I have a stake in this. And so that's really where the tension of the book is that even when we feel like it's time to tap out, it's not our fight. It's always our fight, whether we want it to be our fight or whether it's not, because if it affects them, it affects us worse. If it hurts them, it hurts us worse. And so Jackie is far from a sellout. He's, in fact, in the opposite. He's committed sometimes or oftentimes to his own detriment because of that level of commitment.
Howard, Paul Robeson is one of the greatest Americans of all time, but a lot of people don't know about him. Paint a picture for our viewers on how massive this man was.
No, I can't. I mean, he's too big. I mean, I'll do my best. He's too big. I mean, you think about everything that you could ask. When Maya Angelou would write about the dream of the slave, his father was a slave. So that's one generation. That's not, my great his father was a slave. And here is a man who at one point is considered the greatest college football player in the country in 1917 and 1918 at Rutgers. You're looking at a man who then goes to law school, Ivy League law school, Columbia. You're then looking at a man who is a world-renowned opera singer, a world-renowned concert singer, a world-renowned actor, a world-renowned stage actor. We talk about Jackie Robinson integrating the big leagues in 1947. Paul Robeson integrates Broadway in 1943 in October with Othello. Previous incarnations of Othello had been with white men in blackface, and here's Robeson. For the first time on American soil, a Black man is playing Othello in an integrated cast. And so you take all of those things and you look at accomplishment, in addition to having a political ideology, in addition to being committed, to the African liberation and independence movements. This is an international giant of a man. And the commitment that he had, not just to his own people, but from a class standpoint too, he's an unbelievable, indomitable figure. And I can't do justice talking about him because there's just not enough time.
Was there some things about him that you didn't know until you started your research?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I think that I didn't know that he was Lou Gehrig's baseball coach at Columbia. Everywhere you look, there's Robeson. He's all over the place. And I didn't realize, I think the thing that I really also appreciated about him was his critique of the United States was so much more aligned to my own, in that I believe that race, class, and gender are the 3 third rails of American life. You can't dissect one without the other two. And that's one of the things that Robeson did really, really well in terms of when you're talking about his critique. His critique wasn't just a racial critique. His critique was that capitalism is going to destroy Black people, that we don't have the capital, we don't have the raw material, the raw resources to compete We're always going to lose that battle. We need a more just, more fair system, which runs completely counter to virtually everything in this country in terms of how we are going to have balance. And Robeson, because of that, was called a communist, and he aligned himself with more liberal left-wing progressives, the same left-wing progressives that were pushing, by the way, for Jackie Robinson to integrate years earlier. And so that's the beauty of this man, the total commitment, not just to race, but also recognizing, and we all know this, that the critique is incomplete if you're not going to talk about the money, right? If you're not going to talk about how we actually get there. And that's why you have these different strains of Black liberation that include class, like Robeson and Henry Wallace and the Black Panthers and Angela Davis, and you have that strain. And then you have this other strain of Black liberation, which is the more conservative view, which is the going through the political system and the Black capitalism, the Jim Brown empowerment zones, and these different ways that the argument is trying to be made that you can reach some sort of equality throughout the current American system, even though you are so far behind in resources and physical wealth. And Robeson just rejected all that. Robeson was like, no, it doesn't work. And if you look at where we are today, the Robeson prophecy has absolutely come true, which is, there are going to be a handful of us who are super wealthy. And you think about the LeBrons and the Beyoncés and the Jay-Z's, and then you look at us as people, and the numbers are depressingly low. And this is exactly what Robeson would talk about when he would say, look, I don't really care about my success. What does my success mean when I've got brothers and cousins and nieces and nephews who can neither read nor write? What does my success mean in the face of that? That's Paul Robeson.
And lastly, Howard, and thanks for spending some time with us.
Of course.
What do you want people to get out of this book?
I think the thing that I like the most and what I get through in virtually every project is illumination. Learn something you didn't know before. Try to understand something you thought you knew, but you didn't. Try to understand something more than what you already knew. And I think for me, the thing that I really enjoyed most about this was the depth of knowledge. Not only the depth of knowledge that took me from what I thought I knew to what I know now, but to how much more I need to know. And I think that's sort of the fun part when you realize that, yeah, I could deconstruct this book and write a whole other book on the same subject with more in it, right? I mean, so that is the thing. And I think the last thing, too, is the necessity for us to protect our heroes, to protect our giants, to protect our kings. It's not going to happen if it doesn't come from us. And one thing that has always been very clear as been working on this book and previous books is, who are you as Black people if you have no agency over your own story? If you can't tell your own story, you don't have a story. And so that was also one of the great motivators to really dig into this on our own terms.
Howard, thanks again. We appreciate you spending time with us. We'll make sure our viewers out there to get the book. And it came out, it's been like 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks?
Yeah, it came out January 20th. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So make sure they get that book.
Hey, real quick, B, Howard, where can they obtain the book?
Wherever books are sold. You can get it in indiebound.com. You can get it at Amazon. You can get it at Barnes & Noble. It's all over the place.
All righty.
No, thank you.
All right. Kings and Pawns, Jackie Robinson and Paul Robeson in America by Howard Bryant. Thanks again, Howard.
No, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks to Brother Howard Bryant it was an enlightening interview. And with this being the Black History Month, even though for us, Black History Month is every month, it just lets you know about the historical figures, Branson, that when we were coming up, the only thing we knew about Jackie Robinson, he was the first Black player in Major League Baseball. We didn't really learn much about Paul Robeson except for he played football and he could sing. But, what Brother Bryant did was take this deep dive. And then with this relationship, even though they never met, brother, intriguing.
It is, and I definitely feel smarter. Thanks to Brother Bryant and Paul Robeson has been one of my historical heroes for years, especially when I've talked to Jim Brown and I asked Jim Brown, who were some of his heroes, and Paul Robeson was on the top of his list.
Yeah, and they tried to play brothers against each other, and eventually both of them discovered they both were played. But that just, was it. Real quick, B, I know we coming to the end of the show. We have the All-Star break, NBA All-Star break coming up after the night's games. We have the All-Star game. And then right after that, it goes back to the NFL season. The season never stops because you have the combine and
Are you going? Are you going this year?
No. I've had enough of Indian no place, as you call it. I'm good. I can watch it on the NFL Network. And then NFL free agency starts on, I think it's the 9th of March. It starts around the beginning of March. My question is, which teams do you think are going to be most impactful the first and second day of free agency?
Wow. Well, you have to look at the teams that have money. One thing, the Browns have had the money, but they just haven't been active in recent years. Of course, I'm going to look out west, and hopefully my Raiders are going to do some things.
They got money because they ain't got players. They got Max Crosby, and these are the Temptations.
so they definitely need to make some moves, but we'll see. And I'm really interested to see, where your guy is going in Njoku, that he'll no longer be with the Browns. And I know that was your guy. And I'm certain that somebody's going to pick him up right away.
And I'm close to him. I know we'll get a chance to catch up. He'll still have a presence in the offseason in Cleveland. I think the ideal place for him to go will be the Denver Broncos. They definitely have a voided tight end they need to fill. He still can make plays. It was unfair to judge him and anybody else on last year because you had all of this quarterback turmoil and you had the worst play caller who miraculously gets another job to call plays again and ruin another black quarterback like he ruined Deshaun Watson, and that's Kevin Stefanski. I'm looking for Dallas Cowboys, to me, have the most important decision to make. Are you going to franchise George Pickens, or are you going to let him go to free agency? Because someone will pay him. He played like a number one. He did all he can do. But if he does not go back to the Dallas Cowboys, they might go back to being mediocre. Well, they got a mediocre coach, and they got the Joker as the doggone owner, Jerry Jones. But I think that's the decision that everything else kind of revolves around what will they do as far as Frank, because we know that a lot of times he doesn't like to pay his players, and the only one he's really paid and not dog was Tony Romo. Tony Romo was his son. He'll pay him, but
right.
We gave Dak his money. Remember, he outed him out. So my question to you, bro, is what do you think is going to happen in Dallas?
Well, Jerry Jones has to make a move. He has to make some moves, I should say, because he's running out of time. As far as he's been talking Super Bowl, he's been talking about making the Cowboys more relevant, and the only way for him to do that now, he's going to have to spend some money to get some key pieces in there. But Devils, before we go, I want to apologize for those of you who were looking for Chris Broussard from FS1. Chris had another appointment, so we rescheduled for him to come back in a couple of weeks, and he's looking forward to it as we are.
Yeah. And also, please remind everyone of the contest.
Oh, yeah, definitely have the contest. Make sure you what was that trivia question again?
What was Tank's first adult R&B single on the Billboard charts? not just the name of the song. And make sure you put it in the comments on Facebook.
And you must subscribe to be eligible to win. Subscribe, put in the comment the answer to that question. And at noon Eastern on Friday, we'll have the drawing, announce the winner, and then we'll make arrangements for you to pick up those tickets.
Well, my brother, that was the end of a show. We had to flip a couple of things around, but hey, that's what we do. And thanks again, Brother Howard Bryant, for an enlightening and wonderful interview.
Okay.
Tune in next week. Because we are the Sports Brothers,
and before I say that, we now have rescheduled. It's not at noon on Wednesdays. It's 12:01 a.m. So you can reach us if you work in late night shift. You can turn us on and listen and watch the Sports Brothers. Okay, Delvis, do it again. One more again.
You've been listening to the Sports Brothers,
welcome to the family. Looking for the perfect way to unwind after work? Slide through to Charterhouse Grill for happy hour, Tuesday through Fridays, 4 to 7 p.m. Enjoy $4 off signature cocktails, top shelf liquor, appetizers, and all wine, plus $2 off all beer. Great drinks, great food, grown folk vibes. That's happy hour at Charterhouse Grill, 991 East 185th Street, Cleveland. Pull up, unwind, we'll take care of the rest.
Tampa, St. Pete, and all surrounding areas. Join us for the 2026 Tampa Bay Collard Green Festival, Valentine's Day edition. Love will be in the air Saturday, February 14th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. along the historic Deuces Corridor at 22nd Street and 9th Avenue South in St. Petersburg. This free, family-friendly celebration has something for everyone, including a family zone with a petting zoo, pony rides, and STEM exhibits, plus a free fresh collard greens giveaway while supplies last. Enjoy live music and entertainment featuring Grammy-nominated R&B star 7th Streeter. Learn about healthy eating through intergenerational agriculture demonstrations and experience the culture that makes our community thrive. Think you cook the best collard greens in Tampa Bay?
You ain't never tasted a pot of collard greens the way I cook them.
Don't miss the cash prize collard green cook-off. And be sure to visit the TBCGF Taste Tent featuring Chef Lakeisha Harris, a nationally recognized culinary leader and award-winning competitor. Admission is free, so bring the whole family. We implore you to come hungry. Shop local vendors and celebrate culture, community, and health in the heart of the Deuces. For details and updates, visit tbcgf.org.